Welcome to Open-Minded Skeptic. My name is Zerb, and with me tonight is my good friend Phil.
Hello. How are you?
Good, buddy.
All right. Good evening.
I don't know what possessed you to come by tonight, but we'll find out.
But doom.
And then we're also possessed to have a very special guest with us tonight. He is the king of art and the king of soul. Mm-hmm. And the king of giggles.
Jonesy
Tupa.
Yeah, what's up, fellas?
What's going on? Great to see you. Great to have you on
awesome.
board.
Nice to be here. Nice to meet you, Phil.
Yeah, excellent. And love your work, by the way. Showed some of your work to my daughter. She's a very big artist. And
cool.
You're going to have to get on my Facebook page, and I'll link you over there, and you can see some of her work.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Maybe we could work on something together.
That would be awesome.
Yep. She's doing a Greek god presentation Friday at school.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, but my wife is going. She had to make 5 or 6 posters for all the gods. Wow. Yeah.
Are you you're not a Greek god, are you?
Not anymore, no.
You're not Greek.
No, I gave it up. Yeah.
Gave it up for Lent.
Gave it up for Lent.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah. Wow, I just gave up popcorn, but you guys go in full string.
Hey, go big, man.
That's it. Go big or go home. That's it.
Well, tonight's topic is going to be depression. God.
Depression? This show's really sad.
I don't know what possessed me to say that. Tonight's show is going to be about possession.
Possession, yes.
Oh, yeah.
And here we go.
Okay.
Welcome to the Open-Minded Skeptic.
May you remain open-minded as you seek the answers to life's mysteries.
Welcome to the Open-Minded Skeptic.
Welcome to the Open-Minded Skeptic with your hosts, Phil and Sir.
Welcome to the Open-Minded Skeptic.
May you remain open-minded as you seek the answers to life's mysteries. Well, Chris, I got to ask a question of you.
Yes, sir.
How do you feel about possession? Do you think it is a possibility in the realm of things? And
okay, yes. So I definitely think it is. So I've read most of the Bible. I'm working my way through the Old Testament right now, but and it talks in there about demon possession. I don't know if they talk a lot about it in the Old Testament, but I know when Jesus was around, they mention it quite a bit.
Right.
And he gave the apostles the power to exorcise demons. And then it kind of just leaves it at that. So I've always just sort of thought, well, it was true certainly then. Whether it's still around now, I don't know. I've never experienced that, but I have talked to people in my church who have gone on mission trips to like South America and Mexico, and they have sworn that they have talked to I think one was perhaps a man. I know one was a young boy that they swore was possessed. Like he talked sort of normal, and then it was like bipolar, but it was obviously a demonic kind of, like the voice changed, and,
right.
And they prayed for him and stuff. But so I definitely think there could be some truth to that. I don't know about like the Annabelle doll, like demons possessing dolls and stuff. I don't know if I would buy that. The Bible doesn't really say anything about it. Doesn't mean it's not true, but
right.
That would open up a whole can of worms. I mean, that would be really creepy if that was true. So where do you guys sit on that?
Well, I was going to just pass it over to Kevin. What's your thoughts?
My thoughts were null and void until I saw The Exorcist at age 13.
Okay.
And that made me a staunch Catholic in a heartbeat, of course, because it scared the living behoobas out of me. Mm-hmm. And but as I grew older, I think it can be a possibility. I'm not sure the levels of it. I don't think it goes to the point of the Exorcist movie where your hair turns color and then you're all of a sudden got a snot hanging from here all the way to your ear, Paul, and then you're screaming, obscenities. Like, well, maybe
head spinning
screaming
around, right? No,
head spinning around. The theatrics of it, I don't think are as bad. I believe, honest to God, I believe that there are different levels. When someone jokes around and says, "What possesses you to do that?" Well, it's possible that something's messing around with you that you probably inducted unwillingly or willingly into doing something that you didn't want to do or shouldn't have done, and that can cause, or if you repeatedly do something that's dark and not good and get used to doing it to the point that it doesn't bother you anymore, I think that might be associated with it. And then talking about places like South America and Mexico and especially Brazil down in in Rio when they do the Carnival, that's all possession right there. But things like that.
I love looking at them dancers going down the street.
Oh gosh, it's like there's times where I see angry people and you look at their eyes and you look into them and you're just like, that's not the way they're supposed to look.
Right.
Something's
absolutely. I have to, just to give you my 2 cents, I agree with both of you. I've never seen anybody or anything. I think the only thing I could say, and I'm sure you both can agree, you ever have one of those experiences where you're somewhere, mall, someplace where there's a crowd of people, and you just happen to be passing by somebody, and somebody gives you the willies. You just look at them, and you just say, ooh, that's somebody I don't want to... And it's not so much that you're mad at them, but you just know they're putting off an aura that you don't want to be around them.
Funny vibe.
A funny vibe, absolutely. And Chris, as you heard, Kevin's Catholic. I'm also Catholic, and I'd like to just compare your church's beliefs and your personal beliefs versus what we believe and what we're taught in our church.
Well, he's Episcopalian, fundamentalist twice removed.
Twice removed.
What?
How do you spell that?
It comes with 2 L's. But what is? Sorry. What is your? If you don't mind me asking, what is your faith?
I was raised Catholic, and now I go to Baptist.
Okay, that's right. And we talked about that before.
Okay, so you have some fundamentals of Catholicism, unless you got out when you were younger.
Definitely.
Well, here's what happened to me. Real quick, back in the 90s, I was going down a bad path in my life, and I just, happenstance, was down in New York City, where I was going to indulge in some pleasures, and I was passing a church, and there's an old gentleman sitting there, and he said, "Son, do you have a moment?" And I recognized him right away as a priest, and out of respect, I said, "Sure, I got a minute." And we ended up talking about just soul. We just talked about, what do you think the soul's about? What do you think happens to the soul? And he was a Catholic priest, and the beauty about Catholicism is there's a lot of mysteries of faith that are not scripture, but the Catholic Church doesn't deny nor confirm, like something like reincarnation. They don't take a stance, yet they don't get involved and say, no, it doesn't happen either. And we ended up going down that road, and we talked a lot about that. Well, later, I found out he was an author, and he also was on a radio show I listened to a lot, and his name was Father Malachi Martin. And this gentleman, when I met him, none of this came up. I think we talked maybe about possession quickly, but we spent most of the time, to me, it was a way of saving me. That was an intervention with my guardian angel. I needed to meet with him, and we talked, again, about what I felt I needed to hear. That's the only way I could explain it. That said... During
that point when you were about to go to have the fun.
Yeah.
And that's when it...
And it stopped. And I met with him maybe, I think, a total of 4 times. 3 or 4 times. I went down there, and instead of going to the House of Fun that I was heading to, I'd stop and talk to him. And it changed the course of my life. And I got back on track of what I really wanted to do.
Never went to Disney again.
Never went to Disney again. I don't think that was her name. But
well, for $20 again.
For $20. Here's the thing. This gentleman ended up doing a couple of radio shows, and I heard the radio shows, and his specialty in the Catholic Church was one of the most renowned exorcist priests.
Oh, wow.
Like I said, we talked about it briefly, but not a lot. The funny thing is, what we did talk about that there's two levels, and this is to answer Kevin's question about different levels of possession. He mentioned that there's the perfectly possessed, and this is somebody who you can interact with every single day and never have a problem. But yet every once in a while they give you a glimpse of pure evil or anger, and it's momentarily. And these are people that could go to church, touch holy water, the Eucharist, whatever, but yet, you know, they're happy with their arrangements they have with the dark forces.
It's Al Pacino in that movie.
Yeah,
Keanu Reeves.
Right? Yeah, but he was the devil, though.
Yeah,
he was the devil.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
But it would be that equivalent.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the imperfect or the regular possessed or the harassed. And most people he felt were harassed or obsessed, meaning that the devil or the entity was trying to get them to do bad things, trying to get them to let them in.
Right.
And that's harassment or obsession. And once you're possessed, yes, they move in, take over the slot for your soul, and now you are battling. It's a battle of wills against you and your faith against this demon that's now entered your body. And this was his belief. This is his philosophy. And I kind of can see that. I can understand that. And it made sense to me because I think a lot of people who are harassed, what he believes is that nobody can be possessed without their will. He compared it to any addiction, drugs, alcohol. Okay. You willingly make that commitment. And it's a slow buildup. So alcohol, for an example, you don't just go out and gun down 2-3 gallons of vodka. You might have a beer and then a couple of beers, and then you try something harder and something a little harder next time, and shots and beers. So it's a buildup, but you willingly made that commitment to do it.
Right. To destroy yourself.
Right.
That way.
And he felt that possession was the same way. You had to willingly open yourself up to it. And it's kind of some people it's an instant takeover, but usually it's a gradual takeover. It's that people willingly want that entity to help them, whatever. And, you know, of course, it's that classic, if you get me this woman, or if you get me this job, or if I get this, I'll give you my soul, or whatever deal or arrangement they kind of make. But it happens. And I kind of want to believe it does happen, and because I've met people that, I think were touched, possessed, definitely harassed.
You look at musicians. Some of the musicians out there, I wonder, that are still going strong today. I'm not going to name any names, but they're still number oneing it, and you keep wondering how in the world did they keep making it so far? Did they give something up? And I always think about that old Crossroads story. Or the blues songs that talk about going down the crossroads and selling so you can become famous. The old story about and the movie Crossroads itself.
Right.
And professionals in business, what did they have to do?
Absolutely.
And who did they destroy to get where they are now? And then what possessed them to feel okay with that?
Well, to go with the addiction thing, I saw a 60 Minutes or something last year, I think, and they were talking about religion, and they went and visited this small church somewheres, and this church believed that I mean, I have it quite correct, but basically when you are addicted to alcohol or cigarettes or whatever, coffee, like whatever it is, that is a demon in you. And it might be a little demon, but that addiction is a demon. And so every Sunday when they went to church, they would exorcise those demons. Some people would roll around on the floor. Some people would scream. But by the time the service was over, they had gotten that out.
Right.
And it could be anything. It could be, I'm angry all week. That's not me. You had a demon in you. And I don't know if I
understand.
Believe quite that, but I've also heard some results that some of those addictions are demons. That's why, in our science and technology age, it's an addiction, but it could be that you're not addicted to alcohol, you have a demon of alcohol in you. You can, if you get rid of that demon, you will no longer crave that alcohol.
Right.
It's a kind of different way. You can't treat it with any, you have to expel that demon, right, and you will no longer be addicted. That's something else I've heard.
And here's the thing. Father Malachi mentioned that you're absolutely right. He said, to me, first of all, to answer about that church, about people rolling around, one thing the Catholic Church, all Catholic exorcisms do, is the person has to go through a physical. So an actual doctor has to look at this person, make sure that there isn't any mental deficiencies, that there's no fakery going on. So the Catholic Church is very leery to get involved, because once they do get involved and they declare it a true possession,
right,
then they have to take the religious protocol that they take to start the process. But a lot of times, stuff like alcohol or like the drugs, change of your personality, those are more, well, even drugs, but those are more of the obsession type, where the demon is trying to entice you with things or change your personality. And when you recognize that it's not you, or that you're not acting as yourself, that's the internal battle. That's the battle between the entity and yourself and your soul, trying to work it out. One of the things that the Catholic Church will do a little differently than some of these other Protestant churches is they don't want to make a spectacle and create a copycat type of scenario. And just recently, and I'm calling them out, not because I think the priest is or the minister is any kind of charlatan. I think he's truly doing what he believes is God's work. I think, in my opinion, a church like you were just talking about, there's a church in Florida called the Ignite Church, where every Mass he basically is doing exorcisms. He truly believes people are, possessed and taken over. I kind of look at it, and what Father Malachi had mentioned was that it creates a copycat scenario. So people start seeing other people in the church going forward, so they start acting the same way. They start, and it's almost an attention getter.
I was going to say,
more than an actual, real possession.
Right.
And the other thing is, nobody can just do an exorcism. There's religious people. There's in all the faiths, but they need, their belief is that they need to get permission, or they're granted power by Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So the power of Christ comes through the exorcist. With the Catholic Church, what's misunderstood is, again, being an organization, the priest just can't go out and do anything. He has to get clearance from the bishop. The bishop needs to get clearance from Rome. And the problem nowadays, what Father Malachi felt, was that because we're living in an age where, and you see it in any church and in all the Christian faiths of America, there's no emphasis on the negative. There's no emphasis on hell and Satan and doing wrong. It's all about the good feeling and God's love and God's grace.
Right.
And by removing the negative and the punishment aspect, there's a lack of faith. There's a lack of people believing. They don't want to get involved, so they don't do it anymore. And unfortunately, they feel that the possession rates are going up, the obsession rates are going up. So more and more people, and that's part of the reason why you're seeing people doing really bizarre and crazy and horrible things.
Do you think it's possible to get possessed to the point that you're speaking in old Latin and old Aramaean and all that Aramaic stuff that they do in the movies? What do you think about that?
Okay, let's say us three are talking, right, like right now.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say Kevin is possessed. And he's possessed enough where we know it, like he's speaking in tongues or he's doing crazy stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay, my first thought is, okay, Kevin is obviously possessed. So that means that there is a God, there are demons, not counting my faith, then maybe Jesus is real. Maybe all of that stuff is real.
Right.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So why would a demon want to prove all of that? My thinking is they would be more low-key, like Phil was saying, and just screw up your life and all of your family's life, but in no way prove that there is a God. Because
Interesting,
if Kevin's acting crazy like The Exorcist, then obviously there is a God and there is a devil, so I need to get my butt in church.
I see your point, yep.
If Kevin is possessed enough where he's just a crappy person, there's lots of crappy people around,
Sure.
Doesn't mean that God is real.
Well, you know what?
I mean?
And on that answer, too, there's a lot of crappy people out there who are bad people, who do bad, horrible things, but they're not possessed. You know, they're still going to have to face their maker, but the possessed person is different. The possessed person gives off a different persona. Now, the reason for the whole show of shenanigans and, you know, talking in tongues and swearing and having knowledge about... See, now, if the three of us were sitting here, and in your example, if Kevin was possessed, he would be lashing out. If the two of us said to him, Kevin, you're possessed, and, you know, you need to get Christ in your life by, first of all, by invoking the name of Christ.
Yeah.
It's like fingernails on the chalkboard, like I said, because, again, all these demons were originally angels. So reading the Old Testament, you're probably in that section. I believe it was around the time of, just before, right after the creation story, around the creation story chapters, where they talk about the assembly of God, and God was speaking to the angels. And at the time, Satan, or Lucifer was his number one angel, and he's the light bearer. That was his title, his name. He said, look, you're all going to serve man because we made them in our image, in my image. And Satan said, no, I'm not going to do it. So he and his minion caused the war with the angels of light, and Michael the archangel is the one who ended up beating him out. And God said, okay, the war's over. You're cast into earth for all eternity. So Lucifer's the leader of the whole group. Satan would be his right-hand man, but Satan is the one who becomes the adversary against Christ, an adversary against God. He's the provoker. He's the one who says to Jesus later, hey, look, Lot is doing great because you gave him everything. Mm-hmm. So he's the one who creates this adversity between God and man. But the thing is, God allowed them to remain. If God... And I think in God's ultimate wisdom, he wanted man to have free will, to do the right thing, but to understand that if he did the wrong thing, he was susceptible to Satan and Lucifer and their ilk. And that's why they're there. And that's why they're constantly tempting us and taunting us to do the wrong thing because of our sin, because of Adam's sin is what caused it. But God still gives us the opportunity to have his grace, keep his grace, and then as we try to live our lives and be as Christ-like as possible and follow the ways of Christ, to redeem our souls into the afterlife. And that's that's in a nutshell. That's
that's a big a nutshell.
Big a nutshell. But Satan, and to get back to your point about why they're talking in tongues, is because all of the demons, the way the Catholics look at it, demons don't just have a name. They're identified, and several demons could be in one person. And they identify the demons not by a head count, by their job or what they're doing. So there might be one there that does speak in tongues, and it's feeding on Kevin's pride or
why am I
his
possessed?
rage.
That's what I want to know.
Because
why did I get picked?
Something about you, man.
That's it. Excuse me. Yeah, exactly. But he would be lashing out at us if
my
we
coffee. Cream and sugar, please.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, if he was perfectly possessed, we probably wouldn't even notice it. And it would have been something where, you know, getting to know him, we would have been like, oh, that's just an idiosyncrasy, and we worked beyond it and never really paid it much attention. But being more harassed type possessed, he would be lashing out because the demon's now fighting with him and his soul for his will. But again, he'd have to give it up. He'd have to want to willingly give up his soul and allow the demon in. And that's the thing. Nobody can just, you know, you could be afraid of him, which is fine. That's a healthy fear.
What about the situation where you do, and I'm going back to people who don't have faith in pretty much anything,
Yep.
let alone believe that they might even have a soul in the first place.
Yep.
Are they free pickings for demons, or is there some kind of protection?
No, anybody's susceptible. Anybody.
It falls
Any
under a free
faith,
will type of thing.
It does come down to free will.
Right.
The people who don't believe in God, well, they don't have God's grace now, and they don't have God's protection.
Well, that's my question. Would they still have it? Would God just stop and say, "Oh, you don't believe in me, I don't believe in you"? Or do you think that he would?
It's a conundrum because. Quick side story. I'm a little bit of a history person, but
you're a storyteller.
I'm a storyteller. So when Columbus came to America,
oh God,
all the countries. I'm going way back.
I've heard this story, by the way.
All the countries that he represented, Italy, Spain, England, they all heard of Jesus. They all knew the name Jesus. They knew about the Lord and the Bible. They could not believe at that time that when Columbus got there and came back and said that, well, there's millions of people living on these islands and these lands who've never heard of Jesus. They couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Because at that time, they felt everybody had known the name of Jesus. So it was a conundrum. So they went out and they started apostatizing and they started preaching. And, the Spanish did it a little strong-armed like, you either join us or we're going to kill you. But then that's where it comes into, were these people saved? Because if they had never heard the word of Jesus, they never heard of God and being saved, could they have been saved? And tradition in Catholic Church, and again, Catholics don't have to find everything to be scripturally bound. We can go by beliefs, we can go by practices and traditions. And one of the traditions was that we're asked to be as Christ-like as possible and live a Christ-like life. And if somebody who didn't know Christ could achieve that and be the best that they could possibly be, well, then it's up to God. And only God can redeem or save that individual. But it's likely that God would show favor on that individual, even if he's never heard of his Son or the word that was put forth. So, yeah, in that aspect, they could be saved without the grace of God, but it's a lot harder because they they're not coming in understanding that God's grace needs to be there. As far as possession, yeah, absolutely, because now they don't have God's protection, so it makes them more vulnerable and easier pickings. And I think you're seeing that, especially in this country, with the seculative mentality we have, getting away from church, getting away from Christian ideals, making people more atheist-minded, more science-bound. Yeah, and it's sad. It's really sad because all the churches are really hurting, and it seems like more of the Christian churches in America keep breaking off into smaller and smaller groups because they're protesting against something, whatever it is.
Right. Well, listen. What about people like Trump?
No. Go ahead.
Kanye West.
Yep.
Lady Gaga.
Yep.
Are they? Do you think they're all possessed?
Not speaking for the church, speaking for myself. Yeah, I think it's very possible. I think
that they all have their own little tiny minions in there messing around.
People of power tend to be more willing to give up their souls because again, it comes back to, I don't believe in that. That's hocus pocus fairy tale stuff. But I'll do whatever I can do to get that power. Well, that's opening the door
without using God.
Right. Absolutely.
I think like what Phil was saying with the secularization of especially America, that everything now is about self-empowerment. I can do anything if I put my mind to it. I can achieve anything if I work hard enough. I can do it.
iPhone.
Where
iMac.
everything
anything that has I in front of
right.
Me.
And in the church, you rely on God. You cannot do anything apart from Him.
Right.
But once you take Him out of the equation, for instance, I don't know Lady Gaga or Kanye West. I don't know what their beliefs are.
Me neither.
But I know that when people get, not all of them, but when people get popular, powerful, famous, there's an ego that comes with that. And some people deal with it by being humble and thanking God and relying on God. And other people are like, what can I do now? This is all me. I got here on my own. I don't believe in that stuff. And that's the same with even the guy, delivering the mail. It goes all the way down.
Right.
And it's with all, like, everything is about, you can do anything you want to. Like, even the cartoons nowadays are all about just put your mind to it and work hard. And that's not, I can work as hard as I want to. I'm not going to be an astronaut. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen.
You're onto something. I think that there's a good positive message with what you were just saying. If you work hard, but you also have to have a healthy sense of, aspect, and say, hey, look, I'm in the middle of nowhere. The likelihood I'm going to be an astronaut's nil. But if you're working through the Air Force, and there's a much better chance you're going to get hired. So yeah, you have to have a good sense of reality.
Perspective.
Yeah. Now, again, you're right. I don't know anything about Kanye West or Lady Gaga other than what I see on TV. But my point is, I don't know their faiths, their beliefs. But it's just
they're just examples. I'm just throwing people out
you're right.
of popularity.
And Chris, you hit on something that again, that the church likes to stress, or used to stress when I was growing up, and that's the 7 deadly sins. Is that those are the sins that Satan and his ilk are going to try to bribe us with, and people who flaunt those type of things or exhibit those type of things usually are. So,
and that's something. I'm glad you brought that up. I sometimes count them at night to see how many of those I have, and I have sloth because I do nap a lot. And I sleep super late, and then I'm up for a couple of hours, and then I go back to bed, and I wish I could stay up later. If that's contributed to my own personal illness, I don't know. The second one is going to be, I'm definitely overweight.
Right.
So that goes under, what is that called? Massanutton eating? Gluttony. I said Massanutton, like the mountain. I don't know. Gluttony, and then probably the way that I check out the chicks. Might have a little lust in there.
Well, yeah, and again, there's
I think you can. I don't think you can go through life without.
No,
having
you can't.
those.
And the thing is, though, it's it's one thing to notice that you are leaning towards those things, or you may have delved into those sins, but you have a redeeming quality because you're aware of it.
It's not an I don't care.
Right.
I'm just going to keep doing it.
But then the next step is, have you asked for God's blessing to forgive you for going outside of His wishes? The reality is most of us don't. Most of us go ahead of our day and we don't even realize we've done those things. But it's the idea that that's one of the focal points. And the number one sin that Satan loves is pride. He loves people to love themselves and be full of themselves.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, you need to willingly want to give up your will and give up your soul and let them take over. Meditation's great, but the thing is, if you just go with a completely blank mind and you start having visitations or images that you don't feel are divine, that's a good indication you may have gotten in touch with something else. Ouija boards, spirit boards. Because what you're doing is you're opening yourself up. You're inviting those type of entities to come in.
Knocking on doors you shouldn't have messed with.
Absolutely.
Chris?
When I used to have a coworker, she told me one time that she was in her house, and she was in the bedroom, and she felt like a presence come into the room, and it blocked out the light from like the hallway. It was just like this darkness came in and like kind of sat on the bed, and the bed kind of went down, and she was terrified, and she said she started praying in the name of Jesus and this and that, and it went away.
Right.
But when she was telling me that, this was several years ago, I was pretty new to the faith and everything, and I was like, man, that I would like to see something like that, or and angel so that I know it's real. And then when she told me that story, she's like, you don't ever want to see that. Like, it was really terrifying.
That's
she's
where
like,
faith comes
you
in.
don't ever want to ask to see that, because if you do, it's not going to be good. And so that kind of like made me rethink that.
Yeah.
I guess kind of in the churches that I've been into, they don't talk so much about demon possession. And I don't know if it's just the churches think it's not happening very often in America, or they're just not sure with all the mental problems. They don't want to say it's real, it's not real. They just kind of say, well, it's in the Bible, so it could be true. I think most of the churches that I've been into focus on being on the right path with your faith and with God, so that you will never have to worry about that. And when it comes to, it's not my job to exorcise a demon out of Kevin. What my job is to make sure Kevin knows Jesus, and then he'll never have to worry about that.
Right.
I think that's kind of where things are in the churches I've been to. They don't say, go out and get rid of these demons.
Right.
They say, get yourself right, help your neighbor. You won't have to worry about demons.
Right.
So do you think Trump is possessed?
I don't. No, I'm not going to say
hair
he's
is.
possessed. His hair is.
One thing that I wonder is if it's ever connected to depression.
Possession.
Depression. Being
Depression.
through it. You say depression, I say possession. Yeah.
Let's all go find a priest. You know what? Being depressed could possibly be a sign of being possessed. But, the world we live in now...
They make pills for that.
They make pills, and that's exactly it. This is what I was saying earlier, way earlier. The Catholic Church makes you get a physical. If you are found to really have something going on, they'll next send you to a psychologist.
Before jumping in and
Right.
power Christ.
If the psychologist says, well, there's nothing we can do for you, there's nothing really working, then they'll get involved in the actual rites of exorcism. And that could be instantaneous, like you see in a lot of the Protestant churches, one and done. Or it could take years. There's been cases that the priests have to go in there 2 or 3 teams on a daily basis for years to take care of some person. But the thing is, with medication, it only helps the individual to get by. It doesn't heal the soul.
Right.
So unfortunately, I think a lot
of Band-Aid.
Yeah, it's a Band-Aid, and I think a lot of people get misdiagnosed, and they don't get the right diagnosis, because they may be possessed, and of course psychologists don't believe in that, and yet this person is forever tormented, which is unfortunate.
Well, I'm on Xanax, Lexapro, Percodan, M&M, Skittles, and Tic Tacs, and I feel great.
But do you feel like you're possessed? Do you feel like you're being taunted or trying to be somebody you're not?
Only in podcasting. No, I'm kidding.
It's because I'm here. Damn it, Phil's taking over again.
No. No, not really. It's connected to the disease, I think, more than anything, the MS.
Then you're not possessed.
No.
And again, have you ever opened any doors?
Oh gosh, the only thing I would think is messing around too much with the drugs back in the day and all of that. But then
you got off them.
I got off them as quick as I could.
So you closed the door. So again, even though you opened the door, even though there was the potential, I don't believe you were possessed. And I would imagine an exorcist priest would say at best you may have been obsessed or harassed.
And
that's probably why the drug use
definitely
came up.
Yeah.
Was you were being harassed, you were taking the drugs, you were staying in a drug mode, but then you said, I got to get free of this.
Yep.
And that's when the grace of God came back over you, and you allowed it to take over you.
Definitely.
And you pushed it out of you.
Definitely.
So you didn't need that's the beauty about people who are harassed and obsessed, is a lot of times they could handle this themselves simply with making themselves right with God and Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And provoking prayers, just asking for Christ's help, and that usually pushes them away. Just the power of saying, Christ be with me, Christ help me, God help me, that drives the devils away, the demons away, because they are God's adversaries. They are the opposite of God, and they don't want anything to do with him.
I was reading a book a while back, and I can't remember what it was, but there's a section they were talking about. They went to a Bible study or something, and I think it was maybe one of the girls was acting really weird, and I can't remember, but I think she was like, I can't take anymore, and she was going to ran out on the balcony, was going to jump off or something. And they're like, whoa, something's wrong. She's possessed or whatever. And they were trying to do everything they could to do an exorcism or get it out or whatever they were trying to do.
Right.
And a girl was just like going crazy and being violent and all this stuff. And basically they said they tried for an hour or 2 hours. And what finally got the demon out, the girl had to accept Jesus.
Right.
Nothing they could do would do it. She had to welcome him in, and when that happened, the demon was gone.
Wow, beautiful.
And it kind of reminded me earlier. We were talking about the speaking in tongues and stuff, and I've read a couple different stories about possession, and it seems that for the most part, like Phil was saying, you probably wouldn't know that somebody is possessed until you try to intervene.
Yep.
And until you come up and say, hey, you need Jesus, then they're going to fight back and try to scare you away.
Right.
And that's when you would probably see all that crazy stuff, because they're trying to frighten you away from helping that person.
Yep.
I'm not an expert, I don't know, but it just, from what I've read, it seems like maybe that's when all that craziness comes out. Otherwise, you might never even know.
You're absolutely right, and just being a layman Catholic follower of the faith, I don't have the ability to handle dealing with an exorcism. And because there's a level of it's almost like being a Marine in battle. They have to be spiritually prepared, and unfortunately the entity that's possessing the individual is going to pry on your weaknesses. They're going to look for your fear, and we're all going to go in there. I think it's human nature to say, oh man, I'd love to see that. I'd love to be a part of it. But we would be the weak link in the experience, because I don't think we're spiritually prepared for it. And even if we were ordained to be spiritually prepared by a preacher or a priest or whatever, there's still that fear that the entity could utilize. That's what they'll do. I mean, when we were talking about Kevin being the possessed one, he could look into your eyes, Chris, and bring out information about you that is embarrassing, humiliating, and be like, oh man, how did he know that? And it's only something that an entity of a spiritual nature would know. And again, demons are spirits. They're just like angels. They live in the spiritual plane. It's just that their role and function in that God has created for them is to be adversaries of man, because of Satan's denial to want to serve us like the other angels. And
I think just the idea that I think it'd be kind of neat to see an exorcism pretty much proves that you would not be helpful in that situation.
Yeah, that's right.
You're that's just curiosity and pride right there. You definitely should probably not be in that room.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's exactly it. You're absolutely right. And and again, I think there would be that fear. Anybody's susceptible, and I truly believe that there's you can't have the grace of God in our hearts without the fear of the devil trying to get in there as well.
Chris, what are your final thoughts on this particular topic?
Wow, final thoughts. I mean, I think it's really interesting to talk about. It is. I am interested in it, but I'm trying to have a healthy dose of. I don't want to see it, but I kind of do. I mean, honestly, I'm not. There's no point in lying. Mm-hmm. I mean, I of course I would just to see it, so it's real. But on the other hand, I can't help but think of what my coworker told me. But I think what like kind of what we talked about is just staying on the right path and helping each other stay on that path. Then it'll never be an issue,
right?
It's been really, really nice talking to you guys about this.
Thanks. Thanks, Chris.
And it doesn't like we talked about. It doesn't matter denomination. I don't even care about that with just about anybody, as long as your faith is in the right place. I don't care where you go to church. And I think that if we could get more people to feel that way, then we'd be a better country and a better world. But it's been great talking to you guys.
Absolutely. Maybe we can do it again some other time.
It's a fascinating. So much to talk about. It's just really interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if Kevin said this or I heard it somewhere, but I heard it somewhere that so the Catholic Church has priests who are trained in exorcism, and I think I think it was my dad on that radio show. He was talking about how there's not as many as there used to be. But the thing is, if the church has them, there must be a reason why they have them.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. They wouldn't have. Here's the thing about the Catholic Church, real quick. There's so many things that they do spiritually that's behind the scenes, such as exorcisms, that they don't want to promote or talk about and make mainstream. Yeah. But again, it goes back to that lack of faith and God's grace not being with the bishops and the priests anymore, because they no longer believe. They don't believe in hell. They don't believe in the devil. They would rather promote this sense of, how God is good and God is gracious and loving, and that's part of the reason why they're going away. And it's a really sad statement about the church.
My final thoughts would definitely coincide with both of your final thoughts. It's the strongest point would be the lack of faith for anybody to go through some kind of possession ordeal. And again, I don't think it reaches the level of what you would see in The Conjuring or what you would see in a movie like The Rite or The Exorcist, where the heads are spinning and chairs are flying up in the air and sticking to the ceiling and the person's still hanging on and having fun. I don't know. I don't know. But I doubt very highly on the skeptic side of this title of this show that would ever happen. I would think that the worst thing that would happen is that you're screaming obscenities, mostly because of how angry you must be inside with that type of possession situation. Or you're so full of lust that all you do is make movies that have you performing those acts over and again. Or you just eat so much you die from a massive heart attack when you're 800 pounds. It's just those types of possessions, I think, are the truest. And it is being a matter of having faith and a matter of making sure that you understand that without the grace of God, you can't do anything.
Right. Yeah. No, that's right.
Yeah.
Because it's a willing surrender.
Yeah.
You willingly surrender, and that's what opens you up to the possession. So.
Right.
I think theatrically, of course, they're playing it up to get people to be scared and frightened.
Right.
But at the same time, other than twisting your head around, from what I've heard from not just Father Malachi but other Jesuits, Jesuit priest who I almost became a priest. I told you this, Kevin. Right. He was also an exorcist priest, and that stuff happens. You got to remember, we're dealing with a spiritual entity who wants to inhabit somebody's body, who is full of hate, anger, revenge, and they'll do anything to stay in that body, and that means using their powers of being able to move furniture to, dive into your soul and see your deepest secrets and use them against you. And the one thing we didn't talk about real quick is that some of these families go back generations and they know they're possessed and they pass the demon on to their children through certain rituals. So these families stay this way. And sometimes the people are like, look, I don't want it anymore. I don't want to be a part of this. And they don't know how to break free, almost like Rosemary's Baby. So there's a level of truth in that too. I think every movie...
I go straight to Ruth Gordon when you say that.
So I think every movie shows
don't worry about it. Just go on. It's the son of Satan. Enjoy. Sorry.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, that's right.
No, I think that those scary things could really happen. And part of me wants to see.
Like I say, I don't know.
I think that's human nature.
I don't want to see.
No, Chris does. I think if Chris and I,
Chris, you tell me what happens. I don't want to see it.
if I could be a spectator like a doctor in an operating theater, just looking through the glass and not have to be
just put it on a Steve Harvey or a Rivera. I don't care. Geraldo or whatever. I don't want to see it.
But the problem is that just your presence alone and not being strong enough to deal with it would make you susceptible to being possessed yourself. Because you're this is battle. This is a battle of wills.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's yes.
Yeah.
And even I believe in the Bible it talks about if you mess up and this demon leaves, 7 more can come back in its place or something. So it's like, pressure's on because you could really screw things up.
And that was my point about how many souls or how many demons are possessing a person. It goes back to, we could do a head count saying, there's Chris, Kevin and myself, there's 3 of us. But if somebody was here who was possessed, we'd be like, you can't see the demons.
Right.
So you label them by their function, what their job is, how they respond, what their, abilities are. And that's how they know how many demons are possessing an individual. And, so that's exactly what the Bible states too, and that's how Catholicism looks at it. That this person could have multiple personalities. They say probably about 50% go misdiagnosed.
Wow.
They say multiple personalities is a number one sign that the person's possessed, because now they're not being themselves. Now they're showing outward clear signs of other identities. And those identities usually are not themselves. Only one soul can enter a body at a time. And if you're going to allow satanic or demonic entities in, it's a floodgate. You could have 3, 4, 40 of them.
What if you do a bad impersonation of Morgan Freeman or Bernie Sanders?
That's just a gift.
Oh, good.
That's a gift from God, and He's making it bad because you're not supposed to be Morgan Freeman or Barry Sanders.
Well, that's something I'm very glad about, and I don't have to work.
But on that about gifts, though, people who have like visions, people who have like foresight. Again, if they're not looking for money, if they're not like trying to use it to manipulate people, those could be true gifts of God. Because there's abilities. People have all sorts of abilities.
That's why I don't sell my music, because I firmly believe that if I was to sell that music, I'm selling out my soul, which makes that music.
Right, absolutely.
That's why I give it away.
And that doesn't mean that every artist that's making money is possessed, but does it mean that some may be? Yeah, there's a good possibility. That
they've sold themselves out to a certain
absolutely.
point.
There's a good possibility of it.
Come on, there you went.
Come on, yay. No, he's just a hack. That's all he is.
I know, I'm joking. I am joking.
Chris, let's say goodnight. I think we've covered everything here. We had a good conversation.
Thank you, Chris, very much.
No, thank you. I had a wonderful time. This is awesome.
Great, thank you.
Anytime.
Hopefully we could do this again. And
definitely.
Maybe something a little lighter, not so heavy of a topic.
We still got a lot of cryptozoology to talk about.
Sure, a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Anytime, any topic. It's fun. I love it.
All right.
Phil, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for
thanking me for thanking you.
You're very welcome.
And now sing that sentence you sing so very well.
Oh, did we write it down?
No, I have it memorized.
You have it memorized? Then
I'll tell you what it is, and I'll tell you what it is, and you do it, and I'll edit this. All right.
So, gentlemen, remain open-minded as you search for the answers of life's mysteries. Good night.
Awesome.
All of Zerbinator's music and podcasts are under the Creative Commons license, which allows retelling and rebroadcasting as long as the author is notified and credited. For more great escape pods, please visit www.zerbinator.wordpress.com. If you would like to contact Zerbinatorland, you can send an email to instrumentally@gmail.com or give us a call at 571-408-ZERB or 9372.